Hey, welcome back to Storyteller. And today's title of this story is A Friend When You Need One the Most. And this is a really tribute story to a good friend of mine who's going through a change, very significant change in life right now. But a few years back, he was there for me when I needed it the most. And this takes place back in about 2016. My life had come apart. The proverbial wheels on the bus had come off. I had, well, let's just say my ex wife at the time and I had split up. And it was going to end in divorce. I didn't quite know that at that. Actually, yeah, I think maybe I did know it at that time. It was in the works. It was in the works. I had been told I want a divorce. All right. So I was away from everybody that I knew. I had lived in Colorado Springs at the time. Now I was living in Florida, and I mean, I didn't have a friend in the world. Um, and My friend Dan got a hold of me. Dan had stayed in touch with me throughout this whole thing. You remember Bob Seger? He sings that song Against the Wind. And there's a line in that song where he says, I was surrounded by strangers who I thought were my friends. My goodness, does that happen? When you're in a position where they don't expect or they don't want you to go through things like divorce, you just fade into the woodwork, man. They just sink down, they just disappear. They're just gone. And those people that you thought were your friends, I mean, they don't necessarily hate you or send you hate mail, but they just aren't there anymore. And so I was in a situation the fall of 2016 where there was nobody there except for a couple people, and Dan was one of them. Dan called me up. He said, Glenn, you need to come to Colorado because he lived there, still lives there. And he's like, you need to come to Colorado. We're going to do a guys' weekend. So I'm like, all right, I'll do it. So I flew out to Denver. He picked me up. We went down to his place in Pueblo and we got loaded up. So this is this is late October in Colorado. Okay, I've got some dates that, or maybe it's early October, somewhere there in October. Okay, in Colorado, we get down to his place and he's loaded up. He's got the truck. I believe it was a 2001 Dodge pickup, um, complete with all kinds of goodies: four-wheel drive, engine brake. Right, that's what Dan does. I think, was that the truck that he had the aftermarket overdrive? No, Dan, I think that was the 94 that you put the overdrive on. Why did you sell that 94, by the way? Okay, we won't go there. I'll let you tell that story. But anyway, I think this was 2001, that white pickup. It was loaded, man. The tent was in there. The trailer was on. We had the Razor. The, the yeah, Bell off-road, cool, cool machine. We had that on the trailer. And we probably had the big cast iron skillet. Remember that? Yeah, because that's part of the story. And we headed up to Taylor Park. So this is up in the middle of Colorado. I mean, this is just some of the most gorgeous country that you can imagine. You go up, so leaving Colorado Springs, you'd go up past, uh, probably go up to Colorado Springs, go up past Pikes Peak, beautiful drive, up there. taking Highway 24 out. You go out toward, what is that, Buena Vista area, but then you've got to go through the collegiates. You got to get over the kind of the collegiate range where there's Mount Princeton and Yale, which are 14,000 foot peaks. And then you come into there's Taylor Reservoir and like Taylor Park. And when I say park, you got to understand in Colorado, a park is just a high, it's a high meadow. It's very big meadow. We're talking, thousands and tens of thousands of square acres. So it's very big, but it's kind of relatively flat, surrounded by mountains. Okay. So we get up to Taylor Park, and we get to this campground, and we pull in, and there's the campground. So this is probably on a Friday. We pull in. There's the campground host, right? The guy who lives in a little trailer. He lives there all year, and there's nobody else in the campground. I mean, it's completely empty. I remember this is early mid, I guess, probably October, and we discovered that the campground was closing Sunday night. Like you couldn't stay Sunday night; they were going to be closed. So we were going to stay Friday and Saturday night, the very last nights in this campground, and there's nobody there. You talk about the perfect setting. I mean, let's talk about campgrounds for a minute. Nobody in their right mind, nobody with any kind of sanity, for example, me, would leave my quiet 2 acres in very quiet suburban North Brevard County, Florida, just very quiet, to go to a campground where you live like 20 feet away from those people who have kids that are absolutely and completely undisciplined. And then by 10 o'clock at night, when those same neighbors have their radio cranked and they've got way too much alcohol on board, you realize that they're not disciplined either, and you can't get away from them. Nobody in their right mind goes camping in a public campground. It's ridiculous. It's insane. You can't get away from anything. You get thrown into this place with insane people who are 10 feet away from you. But not in late October. In Colorado, nobody's there. And the amazing thing was the weather was gorgeous. I mean, just perfect. I mean, it's probably down in maybe the upper 30s, maybe 40 at night, a couple nights. We might have had some frost actually. I don't know. Maybe Dan remembers. Um, but then in the day, it's in the mid to upper 50s, maybe clocking 60 in the sun. I mean, just gorgeous weather. So Dan and I pull in. He's like, "Wow, we'll just drive around and pick our campsite of choice." So we did. We actually drove all everywhere around, and we're like, "Oh, let's take this one." Okay, it looks great. So we set up camp, and I think it was that night, Friday. We got there in plenty of time. That was gumbo night. And if you gotta understand my friend Dan. He has this relationship with food that for me, a whole food, plant-based vegan, can be a little bit challenging. Like his tater tot casserole. You take a bag of tater tots, right, Dan? You pour it into a casserole pan. You take like a brick of Velveeta, okay? You cut it up into slices. You lay it on top of the tater tots, and then maybe you throw a couple cans of mushroom soup in there as well. You put it in the oven and you bake this sucker, and it comes out this gooey, sticky heart attack in a pot. Of course, it's delicious. But this night, So Dan's famous for that. Dan's famous for his scrambled eggs, which he always cooks for the campers on Sunday morning. I mean, his scrambled eggs are good. He has a secret ingredient that you never think to put in scrambled eggs. Um, but that Friday night, Taylor Taylor Park campground, it's gumbo stew, and gumbo stew is just whatever you get in the fridge. You just pull all this stuff out, and it's got potatoes, and it's got some vegetables, and you just chop for like an hour, and you throw this all into a pot. And I don't remember if it was like a big Dutch oven or if it was a big lodge cast iron frying pan. I don't remember, but I remember the volume was incredible. Threw all this in there, cooked this stuff up. And man, it was delicious. It probably actually was vegan. Um, it was delicious. I mean, just so much food. And of course, another thing you need to know about Dan, he doesn't do fires in any kind of small way. So like half of his pickup was full of firewood, I think. So we got a roaring fire. We've got gumbo stew. We've got some stools or some chairs like this one. And it's just this guy time where you stare for an hour into the fire with a good friend and something deep gets touched and maybe even healed. And so I don't remember what we talked about, but it was it was great. We got up the next morning and we made some quick preparations. We got the razor unloaded from the trailer, and I think we threw some snacks in, and we headed out for the peak of American Flag. It's a mountain that you can drive up in like a razor or a dirt bike or a quad, four wheel drive. But it's pretty amazing trail. And we drove, and I got some. I'll put a link. I actually did a video years ago of the trip, and I'll post a link with this. It's like a two minute 15-second video that just hit the highlights of the trip. And there's like the aspen. There's some aspen, little clumps of aspen trees. They're just inflamed in color. And we drove all the way up there. Of course, once we get up there, there's a whole bunch of people. There's dirt bikers and there's other quads and side by sides, and there's a flagpole and there's an American flag up there. And we watched this snowstorm move through the valley over. Just watched it go by, kind of snow up high, rain down low. Like this little kind of pouring columns of rain and snow went by, and oh man, we just had the greatest time. I mean, there's nothing like so four-wheeling up a mountain is in the same category as mountain climbing. It's in the same category as riding a motorcycle. It's in the same category as flying a two-seater airplane or a hang glider. It's in the same category as running a chainsaw and smelling diesel exhaust and running your tractor. It's just this guy thing. I mean, I know that I'm sure there are women who can understand this, but in general, like, this is just male freaking bonding where you're not solving world hunger, but again, you're you're healing. Something's shifting in your soul, man. So we did this. We drove down. We stopped by these old ancient cabins, and peeked in, looked around, and drove all the way back down, and just had a great day. Little bit of rain, but didn't really get wet. got back to camp, and Dan had this tent. Like, when I say a tent, I'm not thinking about a two-man tent. I'm talking about a tent that had like a couple rooms. Like, you could stand up in this thing. This is like a field artillery tent or a field hospital kind of tent. This thing is giant. And so yeah, we had warm sleeping bags, and wow, what a great time. The next morning it was cold again. We got up, and somewhere in that morning, Dan claims that I came out of the I did. I do remember that now because the campground was empty and I had to go to the bathroom. So I came out of the tent in my underwear. Dan still, that was a moment where that guy bonding turned into kind of a psychological injury, I think, for Dan, um, because he had to see my scrawny little butt. I don't, yeah. Anyway, he still complains about that. I didn't care. I went to the bathroom, and we're like making breakfast, and I think we were done with breakfast, and all of a sudden I look over, and there's this. We were kind of on the inside of this campground loop circle, and then there was the outside where there's nobody there, and then there was a creek that flowed, and then on the other side of the creek, the there was a hill that went up. Fairly not real steep, but fairly steep. Kind of went up somewhere. I don't know. And I look over, there's a bull moose just coming down that hill, and he's crossing the stream. Now, I'm not talking about a young bull moose. I'm talking about Big Daddy. I'm talking about Big Daddy. Big rock. I'm not a hunter, but I'm telling you, this moose was big. Now, I know just enough about big animals to know you don't get close. Like, these things can trash you. And so we just hung right in the campground there. We got some pictures from a long ways away, but the thing went back past the outhouse where I had been not too long before. And we kind of followed it and went through the campground, and then out of the campground, across the road, out into the big meadows of Taylor Park. And oh, you talk about an epic moment. Like, that would never happen all summer long. There would never be a bull moose come through that campground when there was anybody there. But we were quiet enough. I guess we weren't making a bunch of noise. He didn't feel threatened. I mean, epic. It was just one of those epic moments that was like, I would even go so far as to say, in 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 the condition of my soul, my need for a friend, that friend's availability, and that friend's availability to create just the logistics for a weekend like that, and then to have the weather, the passing snowstorms in October, and a bull moose coming through the campground. I mean, it was so epic. And I mean, to this day, Dan and I just like, yeah, you remember the moose? Oh yeah, remember the moose. So yeah, we packed up, we headed back. I don't remember anything after the moose actually, because that was the highlight, man. But we packed up, we got back to Pueblo, where Dan lives, and somewhere in there he took me to the airport, and I flew back. I was in Florida at the time. But what a moment in your darkest hour, when everybody you thought was a friend had become a stranger, except for one guy. And there's a couple others. I got a couple more stories about guys during that period of life who actually saved my life from overwhelming discouragement, from fear of the future, from helping me change my future. And Dan was that guy that weekend. I'll never forget it, and I'm forever in his bond of brotherhood, his band of brotherhood for reaching out to me at that dark time, those war years, those trench warfare years, and reminding me that life is epic and there's people you can lean on. You don't need too many. You don't need 10 or 20. I didn't need all those strangers, right? And you got one or two good friends. You've got what you need. So make sure, in your life, don't worry about fostering 25 relationships. You can go light on all that, but make sure you got a couple. Foster a couple people that you really love and you really like, and foster those relationships because it will pay you dividends. So that's my story for this week from Storyteller, the epic story of when you don't have any other friends, one is good enough. I'll see you next time. Oh, and you don't have to click like or subscribe. Just if you like the story, just come back next time and I'll tell you some more good ones.